Boy, have I got a wild broadcast for you today. First of all, people's heads are still exploding from Donald Trump at the prayer breakfast. I got some updates on that you're not going to want to miss. And as I'm going through my studio here, getting ready to go to work, I'm reminded, I'm looking at these, I just got to say this, the gold and silver markets, they're woo, and look at the crypto market and the Bitcoin. You know what? The whole world's got the jitters. And what you got to know is so many people, like myself, say, I wish I'd gotten involved with that gold and silver you were talking about when it was $2,000, like 2 years ago or something, or silver, like $20 for a troy ounce, and then it goes up to 100 or 120, and then JP Morgan estimates that the gold's going to go up to 6,000. Why am I saying that? Well, because a lot of you are like me. You're saying, I wish I'd gotten in earlier. But guess what? The interesting thing about this market is, just know this. Trump is like a stabilizer, and yet the world's all jittery. Just imagine what the future will look like without him, or with an election cycle where the left takes over again and Wall Street. Oh, my gosh. What I'm saying is, you don't have to be a sophisticated investor to know that now's the time. You know why? Because it's like right now, it's kind of like things are dropping down. So I think it's gone down to like, from 120 down to $70, for a troy ounce of silver. And then it's like, depending on when you're watching this broadcast, check it out. But it's like from 5,000 down to 4,800, 4,700. But here's the point. If you were ever thinking, go to lancewallnau.com/gold and do something now, because now's the time to grab it. Because I promise you, the jitters that go out there in the economy always end up finding a safe haven, and that's where gold and silver is. Go to lancewallnau.com/gold. Now let's get into today's Trump declaring he's going to bring the nation to a rally to determine and declare that we are one nation under God, and oh my God, the liberals are freaking out. Separation of church and state. Trump says, meet you on the mall. Watch today's show. Oh boy, it's time for the Lance Wallnau update. I'm giving you the news, and my goal is to give you the stories that you're not hearing, or the stories you are hearing, but you don't hear the right perspective, a different perspective, a perspective that is going to tie the loose ends together for those of us that are seeking for a national awakening of sorts. And boy, did Donald Trump give everybody a shock at the National Prayer Breakfast. I'm covering this from earlier. Because the media is just now realizing what he did. You know that whole thing about separation of church and state? Well, Trump just nuked it with a declaration that, hey, for the 250th anniversary of the country, I think we all need to get together on the National Mall and rededicate our country back to faith. You have to have God. One nation under God. How about that? That's what we're going to do. And so, boom, he's proclaiming, like, what is it, May 17th or something? Everybody's going to show up and rededicate. This is a big deal. Now, for those of you that are Christians, you know that we're in a spiritual battle, and evil has metastasized to control the institutions. The country is in a spiritual civil war, but I don't think that the Christians understand that if we don't win this thing in the spirit, then it spills over into them invading churches and going after. Listen, these people are crazy. They want power back so that they can prosecute and persecute their enemies. They're not healthy. They're not right in the head. And it's a mind virus that is on an entire party. It's the way the spiritual stuff works is a principality gets a hold of a corpus or a corporation or a corporate body, and then it infuses its spirits all through that entity. I know it sounds kind of weird, but when you see the anarchy, the lawlessness, the craziness that is on the left, they don't even have policies the country likes, but yet they're able to control the messaging and create all this chaos so that, it's kind of like an airplane where they're trying to break into the cockpit. Meanwhile, they're terrifying everybody in passenger, seats because they want control of the plane, even though they are a minority, 10% of the country. But if they have institutional leverage, if they've got the loudspeaker, if they got the microphone, if they've got the school systems and the teachers' unions, if they've got the legacy news, they amplify their influence all out of proportion, which is why Trump is such a delightful course correction, because every time he goes up to open his mouth, he just drops these bombs all over their fortifications. Anyway, he was getting some pushback at the National Prayer Breakfast because he was asked repeatedly by people, you talked about like you hope you're good enough to get to heaven. You said this thing, and this is a religious gathering. What are your thoughts? And I said before, when Trump makes those comments, he's making them tongue-in-cheek because he knows he could do far more for the cause of righteousness by advancing Christianity and appearing to be, hey, I don't even know if I'm going. I don't even know if it was a Christian saying, I'm a Christian and we're advancing Christian righteousness. Oh, my God, the nation would explode. But you put Donald Trump in there saying, I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to behave myself. Anyway, we need God. Who could fight with that? So he said during his speech, he said, look, regarding my previous comments about I don't know if I'm going to go to heaven, I was being funny, which is what I said. He was being tongue-in-cheek. You can't be sarcastic with these people, referring to the news media. I said I'm never going to make it to heaven. I just don't think I qualify. I don't think there's a thing I can do with all these good things I'm doing, including with religion. But I said, even though I did that and so many other things, I don't know if I qualify to make it to heaven. But he said I was just having fun. I really think I then he adds this, which will drive evangelicals crazy. I really think I will make it. He's still keeping score. But, I'm telling you something. God measures deeds. And this guy has done more for the cause of protecting Christians than any president in history, much to the shock of those people that thought that we were electing, a heathen that was going to destroy the country. We ended up having God do a switcheroo and give us exactly the blunt force prophet voice we need, advancing the cause of Christ and confusing the enemy because nobody accuses Trump of being a Christian. You get the beauty of that? So he says, we are rededicating America as one nation under God. During this historic year, a sacred prayer ceremony will be held on the National Mall on May 17th. That's a good deadline for us. Let's see if we can get the people of God to get into a position where we could prevail with the God of heaven to intervene, because the state alone, the political apparatus alone, midterm elections and all that stuff we're going to be talking and working through, that will not push back the gates of hell. Only Christ can do that through the church. Where is the church? How is the ecclesia that Jesus talked about showing up? That's the big question. He says we're inviting Americans from all across the country to come together on a national mall to pray and give thanks. And we're going to rededicate America as one nation under God. So that's Trump's response during this 250th year, is to join with friends and neighbors of every state in the union, giving thanks and praise to God for 250 years of his providence for the United States, in praying that God bless and protect America for the next 250 years, and in solemnly rededicating our country as one nation under God. Well, it had at least half the room give him a standing ovation, and the other half nervously hoping that he would stop talking. All right, let's talk for a second about the other aspect of the Trump phenomena going on in the country right now, and I got to cover this. It's the left-wing media meltdown over Melania's documentary. The Detroit News, somebody bold there, some MAGA, journalist who's hiding out, says, regarding that movie, that documentary about, regarding Melania Trump, they have, wait a second, let me get this straight. Film critics raved over Becoming, the fawning 2020 documentary. Oh, wait a second. Wait. There was a documentary I'm reading about Michelle Obama, not Melania. I'll give you Melania in a second. But here's what they had to say about the Michelle Obama documentary, the Detroit News. Now, I realize it isn't a closet MAGA journalist. It's the Detroit News. They referred to Michelle Obama's documentary as a warm latte delivered to you in your favorite mug. NPR, National Public Radio, said this: even with its flaws, Becoming, Michelle Obama's documentary, is a compelling documentary offering a carefully revealing look at a whip-smart, ferociously practical woman trying to understand how her historic time in the White House changed herself, her family, and her nation. Notice the tone shift. Now, maybe I'll find NPR's review of Melania, because I guarantee it wasn't
It wasn't nice. So NPR needed something negative to share about the film, so it dug into the demographic breakdown. Here's how they covered Melania. Well, there was a large number of older white women in the movie. In other words, they were looking for a diversity quota, and evidently Melania Trump is considered an older white woman with an older white woman demographic watching her, which sounds to me like it's got a touch of white supremacy accusation in it. How often do media outlets report on the demographics of a given film? Do you know? I don't think they do. But the Daily Beast took the crown here. The site has repeatedly called the film a flop, although it's on pace, actually, to pass 2024's very successful documentary, Am I a Racist? What's his name? What's his name? Huh? Matt Walsh. That's right, Matt Walsh. And so it's actually succeeding. It's making money. Jeff Bezos was the one who put some money into this, and he's a smart billionaire. So what does he know? He knows that half the country actually likes the president and his wife. That's why they voted for him to be in office. So he is putting it on Prime Video as a draw. The documentary will draw attention and eyeballs to his streaming service, giving it a competitive title in a cutthroat streaming landscape. The film's theatric bow is an extended promotion for its final digital destination. So I know a whole bunch of you that didn't see it are going to go, when you're looking for it on Prime Video and Amazon, you'll watch it there. And he knows it too. He's a smart businessman. So why all this hate? I think the First Lady says it best. She said, look, storytelling drives culture, and in turn, storytelling moves the markets. And she's right on that. So I would recommend that you all go see it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I almost got to the preview, but I just want to tell you, the legacy media, a Variety magazine, a documentary that never comes to life. It's a portrait of the First Lady of the United States, but it's so orchestrated, so airbrushed and managed that it barely rises to the level of a shameless infomercial. Well, I think we've got to keep on invading the realm of media because, like I said, the lords in the high places, those that occupy the gates of influence, are decidedly leftist, and they hate anything that's on the right. But this movie has already passed the $3 million profit mark, which makes it one of the most successful documentaries already in the history of the documentary film genre that we're in with politics. So good for you, Melania, and I'm sorry that if you were a Democrat, they'd be fawning all over you as a Jackie Onassis, Jackie Kennedy model of elegance and beauty and class and blah, 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 blah. But we know that's not going to happen. But anyway, I'm going to take my jacket off and return here in a second for this next sizzling segment. And we're going to take a look at another Jeff Bezos move because he has removed, he cut down 30,000 Amazon workers, and nobody really talked about it. But he just fired like a whole bunch of profitless Washington Post journalists covering diversity and other things that nobody was reading. And Jeff Bezos, if anything, is a billionaire because he knows how to position himself to make money. He was smart for backing the Melania Project. It's going to bring traffic over to his Amazon platform. And he is cutting back on the Washington Post's goofy journalists to try to appeal to more of America. We'll be right back.
We're entering a period of time that has increased hostility against people of faith. It's a time when Christians are going to be tested on a moral, physical, psychological, and even a financial basis. I'm here to remind you that God is the one who has blessed you thus far, and he will take care of you in the future. You have a divine responsibility, however, to see trouble and prepare yourself. For example, with record inflation eating away at the value of the U.S. dollar, the savings in your retirement account is in danger of slipping away. I recommend diversifying your 401k or IRA out of paper assets and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Now that includes no penalties, there's no taxes when you transfer current retirement funds into Birch Gold. To see how it works, I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and get your free info kit, and you'll be glad that you did.
All right, welcome back to the next segment of the news coverage. I want you to catch what Ben Shapiro has to say regarding the fact that the media really cared more about the 30. They really couldn't care less about the Amazon cutbacks that Bezos did at Amazon with 30,000 workers. But boy, they're melting down over the Washington Post. Watch this.
They were deeply affected. They were really upset when 16,000 people were cut from Amazon. Oh, I'm just kidding. They didn't care about that. That lasted in the news for like 5 seconds. The Washington Post is going to lay off 1/3 of its staff. Oh, no. They laid off the third-string journalist in Gaza, who may or may not be a contractor for Hamas.
Bye, have a great time.
They laid off the race and ethnicity reporter for the Washington Post. You mean that people covering issues, they're going to be covering issues without regard to the race of the reporter? That sounds terribly not racist. The American promise has been sullied and violated. The view of journalists that somehow they are owed their position because the person who hires them is rich is extraordinary, especially when many of these same journalists are asking that the federal government step in and make the owners of their own businesses not rich anymore. Bernie Sanders put out a statement, quote, if Jeff Bezos could afford to spend $75 million on the Melania movie and $500 million for a yacht to sail off to his $55 million wedding to give his wife a $5 million ring, please don't tell me he needed to fire 1/3 of the Washington Post staff. This is why Bernie Sanders thinks that you should not have shampoo choices. It's not about what you need in America. It's about what you want. That's why this country kicks ass. And that's why your version of the country sucks.
Why was that fast forward through the Bernie? You know, you never need to go fast for. Was that we did that, or was that the way the video plays? First of all, if you know, I've learned that if I watch YouTube or I watch these videos, I put them at 1.25 speed or 1.5 because they talk too slow, and you know you're busy. You want them to talk fast. You never speed up Ben Shapiro's voice. The guy already sounds like Roger Rabbit on amphetamines. He's already too fast. Anyway. The point he's making is that Bezos is doing what he has to do, but socialists expect you, I guarantee the first thing the Democrats will do back in power is NPR is back again because America needs to have a voice in the radio that isn't controlled by the White House. It's going to be so ugly if these people get back because they're not even wearing makeup anymore. I mean, they're just plain on display. Their hatred is scary. You got to control those gates of influence, folks. I'm telling you, don't lose the cockpit now. Anyway, the House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt says something interesting. She highlights historic crime decline as the murder rate hits the lowest level since 1900. This is hard to believe, but according to Leavitt, the FBI has significantly put a punch into crime. Now, in D.C. alone, if these blue mayors of these cities with crime would just let the government work with them in getting the criminals and the sex traffickers and the gangs out of business, then you would have across the board. Listen to what happened in D.C. Homicides, as of last week, are down 62%. Motor vehicle theft, which was like the capital of motor theft, was Washington, D.C., has dropped by 53%. The 2025 period recorded the fewest violent gun crimes of any year in the entire available data of the nation's capital. More than 2,000 arrests have been made since the federal takeover. Leavitt said, noting the National Guard members remain deployed in the city as part of the administration's continued crime suppression effort. It's just common sense. Nobody wants to go commit a crime if there looks like there's cops or somebody around there. Leavitt said, now I always look at Memphis, Tennessee, the highest murder rate and crime rate. It's a terrible city in terms of crime. But federal agents were invited in. The National Guard troops were deployed. And in that city, nearly 5,600 arrests have been made in Memphis since the deployment began. As of last week, aggravated assaults are down 53%, sexual assaults down 53%, and robberies are down 70%. That's, the FBI has significantly expanded its operations against organized crime, disrupting 1,800 gangs and criminal enterprises, a 210% increase from last year. They've got 1,700 child predators and more than 300 human traffickers working with them across the country have been locked up. Since President Trump took office, 6 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives have been captured. And guess where they were captured? Right in the nation's capital. It's almost like lawlessness is drawn to D.C., and the sheriff is shutting it down. Well, the Levin is highlighting the historic crime decline as murder rates are at the lowest since 1900, but I'm sure that the Democrats, once back in power, they'll reverse that terrible trend, and murders will be right back where they belong. You just watch. So that's what their plan is. Now, here's a curious solution to the transgender surgery. And how practical can you get? You think that it would be mass conviction of conscience, and the argument against mutilating minors and having counselors that are telling parents, would you rather have a suicidal boy or a transgender, girl? In other words, it's your fault, mom and dad, if you don't go with the program. Now, I showed you yesterday the appalling and shocking data that links the rise in autism to the rise in vaccines in deadly combinations, indiscriminately given in mass in the United States through the pharmaceutical industries, which has created direct correlation with the rise in autism. But what Dr. McCullough said, that is it's a grenade, that goes off right there in the backyard. He says, but the correlation between autism and transgender is also provable, meaning that if you're autistic, you might be more inclined to have confusion over gender. You might have social dysfunction in being able to fit in, and suddenly you become someone with a cause worth celebrating. If you come out as a trans kid in the school, now you're one of the cool kids that's doing something avant-garde. And so the psychological manipulation of the autistic segment of society is high. Therefore, a high number of them are the trans candidates. But what's happened, and this is very important, to thwart the progress for these that are praying for these things. How does it really? What did the doctors suddenly develop a conscience? Did whistleblowers come out and say this isn't right? No, of course it doesn't work that way. But the American Society of Plastic Surgeons advises against sex change suddenly for minors in a new statement. Basically, don't do anything till they're like 19 or older. Why? Well, because a lot of gender dysphoria and confusion clears up by the time you hit 20. So they're saying, no, let's wait till 19. But what really is driving that is the insurance companies are now getting sued. The doctors are getting sued. The counselors are getting sued. There's already been 2 cases where the lawsuits, one lawsuit filed by a 22-year-old woman against her doctors for pushing her into a double mastectomy when she was a minor, was awarded a $2 million landmark ruling. Regardless, it's time for sex-rejecting procedures for minors to end. The case involved a Westchester County, New York jury awarding $1.6 million to a detransitioner, Fox Varian, for past and future pain and suffering, and $400,000 for future medical expenses. Fox Varian, who was once identified as a man but no longer does, underwent a double mastectomy at the age of 16. The jury awarded Varian the damages after determining that medical professionals rushed into performing the life-altering surgery and didn't follow adequate protocols of what they characterized as a departure from the standard of care. Breaking that down into its pragmatic facts, now that doctors get sued, they've decided to develop an ethics. Isn't that unfortunate? But the money is making them think twice about the wisdom of sexual mutilation of genitals of teens. Interesting development. Along those lines, there's another curious story. Galveston man sues California doctor under new Texas law, allowing lawsuits over abortion pills. This is unusual, but we have a House bill in Texas that allows a private citizen to sue an abortion pill provider. And in this case, here again, through litigation, you'll find an impact on certain behaviors because the lawsuit alleges that the woman's ex-husband was ordering abortion pills for his ex-wife who was dating this other guy. And so she had 2 abortions with the pills. And basically, the HB7 law, which went into effect December 4th, allows private citizens to sue anyone who manufactures, distributes, mails, or provides abortion medication to or from Texas. Therefore, it was her boyfriend who said, yeah, man, you're giving my girlfriend these pills here, and she's had 2 abortions, and I'm holding you responsible because you're mailing in your products into Texas, so I'm going after you. Well, that's $100,000 in damages, and the opponents are saying, well, that's like a bounty hunter's, bonus that's going on. Well, that's what I'm saying is what people won't do for moral reasons, they'll do for financial self-interest, and that happens to be what's happening right now. So, in the run-up, I got 1 minute left here. I'm torn between where to go with this. I'm going to head into some interesting waters. Oh, let me just cover this one thing. The Trump assassin, Ryan Ruth, now has been sentenced to life in prison. The original sentence, I think it was life plus 7 years, which really confused me. So I'm not sure what you're doing with the extra 7 years of life plus 7. Not sure how they do that. But he's going to have a life imprisonment. He was sentenced recently. He attempted to kill himself with a pen, stab himself in the neck with a pen. He tried to commit suicide to avoid spending the rest of his life in prison. He set up a sniper's nest in shrubbery outside of Trump's golf course in West Palm, just like within 2 weeks after Trump was almost killed in Butler, Pennsylvania. And so that's 2 attempts on his life. And I think this has had a large part to do with why it is that Donald Trump has a kind of a different sense of urgency regarding destiny and what he's got to accomplish and this divine sense of mission. And we pray for him, and we pray that he will continue to be protected, because I believe he has not finished his course, and America must rededicate itself to God. And that's our challenge. It's a big challenge. But hey, I can't believe we're out of time today. But I want you to get that potpourri of perspectives on what's really happening in America this week, so that you can be informed and pray accordingly. We'll see you tomorrow.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate